Hola amigos, this is level 12 and today we are going to be asking ourselves, should Finland really be Santa? Now when I first started watching Italia, I was like, why is Finland Santa? And I mean, it makes sense, his personality, he likes kids, but I'm just like, there are better, more historically accurate candidates for Santa. Now this isn't like a full-fledged theory, I'm not good at those, so this is just the research I did. The characters I thought would work, and this is one of the holiday videos. Anyway, so the video is gonna work. I'm gonna get my points across, and it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. If my mouse would work. Okay, so why is Finland Santa? According to the Head of Wiki, is because there are some legends where Santa lives in a town in Finland. Now, I don't know if this is a Finnish thing, if this is a European thing, but where I'm from, America land, we say Santa comes from the North Pole. I don't know if anywhere else does that, and in the animes I watch where they celebrate Christmas, I've heard he comes from the North Pole, so I think it's more known that he comes from the North Pole rather than he comes from a town in Finland. I'm not saying that's wrong, it's just the majority of the world believes Santa comes from the North Pole. But another reason why I think Finland is better suited for Santa than some of the other characters is that Santa's nice, jolly, and a lover of children, and this describes Finland perfectly. And it even showed what would happen if other characters tried to be Santa. Their personalities won't work out, it just didn't mix, but however, I think that just because he's nice and happy and jolly does not mean he is Santa. So, who should really be Santa? Well, to answer that question, we must first learn the origin of Santa. And y'all are gonna like it because I spent too long on this. So, Saint Nick is born. He is said to have been born in Patras, which I couldn't find a map for, but it says present-day Turkey, which is more or less this general area. Here's Constantinople in the Byzantine Empire. Yeah, basically Santa. And he was born in 280 AD, and he was imprisoned by Emperor Diocletian in 325 AD, and he is said to have died on December 6, 342 AD, and I know December 6 is when a lot of countries celebrate St. Nicholas Day. Don't quite remember what that's about, but generally that's when it's celebrated. And he attained the title of Bishop of Maillard at a really young age. He was a gift giver, he gave gifts, and the name Santa Claus comes from the Dutch words of Sinterklaas, Klaus, however you pronounce it. And this was their term for their favorite saint, Saint Nick. And remember this, because it's going to come up a lot. So there were two origin stories of Saint Nick and his gift-giving ways. The first origin was there were three poor daughters, and they couldn't get married because their father didn't have enough money to give them a dowry, which is how women got married back in the day. Saint Nick threw bags of gold through the window, the chimney, when each came of time to marriage, because if they couldn't marry, they had to become, like, whores. One version says he threw it through the window and it landed in the stockings that were drying over the fire. Thus, we have the stockings in which he put gifts in. Other story says he threw it down the chimney, which I don't know if it got in the stocking that way, but anyways, they got their thing. When it was the third daughter's time to marry, the father caught Saint Nick, and now everyone who received a gift from Saint Nick thanked him. Well, everyone who received a gift thanked Saint Nick because they thought it was him doing it because he was really nice. And I mean, the father was chill about it. He was like, hey, you helping my daughters. And that's where the first picture comes from. The second picture, some will think is more gruesome, but I have reasons for it. The second origin story is Saint Nick was traveling on a journey to Nicaea for like a conference, and he had to stop at an inn. He had a dream that the innkeeper killed three young boys, and that the innkeeper was killed three young boys, and they were going to study in Athens. In the morning, Saint Nick confronted the innkeeper, and the man confessed to killing and eating other guests. When Saint Nick was he hadn't eaten the boys yet, he was pickling them in their cask, which is like what they used to make wine and stuff in. And so when Saint Nick found them, he crossed them and they were restored to life. This is what made him the patron saint of children. So these are the two main origin stories of Santa and how he was introduced into the world of Christianity and how he was brought over to Europe. This is the stories that they brought with him. So far we have him doing a lot of cool stuff in Turkey, but does that mean Turkey is Santa Claus? No one wants this guy to be Santa. Not only that, Santa didn't really become popular with the nations that celebrate Christmas until he was brought over to Europe, so it wouldn't really make sense for Turkey to be Santa, because the people there don't really celebrate Christianity anymore. I think it's freaking Islam or something. Whatever, I'm not 100% sure about that. But anyways, Turkey ain't Santa, because that's a scary thought. And so now we're going to figure out how Saint Nick spread and how more of the modern day Santa started to come. When Christian crusaders invaded Europe, they brought everything to try and convert the pagans, which was mostly what Europe was at that time. In many Germanic and Celtic tribes, Saint Nick enslaved Woden, a Germanic god, and called him the Dark Helper. These are how, in some areas, Saint Nick ruled alone, very high church influence. In other areas, Saint Nick used the Dark Helper as a slave, some church influence. And in areas with very little to no church influence, the Dark Helper reigned supreme and kept his fur-clad appearance. This helped spur one of the artists from America, and how we have the modern day looking Santa, because he saw this. I have to flip my script. Other stories, in some stories, Vikings would call upon Saint Nick and have him, like, bless their ships through sailors and rough waters. William the Conqueror called upon Saint Nick for protection on the night he tried to invade Europe. And churches, condone this mixing of Saint Nick and with other gods, as long as the people were celebrating the Christianity. He's also been dubbed the patron saint of Russia, Greece, prisoners, bakers, pawnbrokers, shopkeepers, and wolves. I can see everything except for the prisoners and the wolves. I have never found anything on why he's the patron saint of wolves. I just don't know. However, he's still in a lot of areas most commonly known as the patron saint of children, and we will get into why in a few more slides. Saint Nick versus the Dark Helper. Christian leaders did not mind the mixing of the Mediterranean Saint Nick and the Germanic god Woden, which was dubbed the Dark Helper. However, he was often painted as the devil himself and became Saint Nicholas's slave. Poor masses began to idolize the Dark Helper as he represented their own enslavement and to Christianity. In Dutch stories, Sinterklaas would bring gifts to good children, and Zwart Piet, I think that means Dark Peter, don't quote me, would take the bad children and throw them in a sack. This never happened, however, as Sinterklaas would always intervene and help the children, thus patron saint of children. But does this story sound familiar of an evil spirit dude that would hurt the bad children and Santa would save them and even help the good children? Does it sound familiar? 'Cause it does to me. Saint Nick and Krampus. The Dutch Zwart Piet is very similar to the Germanic Krampus, who beats children who have been bad and put them in a steel pot. But yet again, Saint Nick would stop this from happening. In many other parts of Europe, similar stories of Saint Nick and Dark Helper run rampant. It's hard to say where the origin of this came from, yet the two main prominent ones are the Dutch and German stories. There's also a few from Hungary, Austria, Poland, and a bunch of just other stuff in that region of Europe. Now, this is why I thought that Santa really shouldn't be Finland, because Finland doesn't have stories like this. I think what happens in Finland is Santa comes on a boat or something. I didn't write that down. That wasn't relevant to my research. A bunch of the end parts of the article I was reading was just how different European nations celebrate the coming of Santa, which is all fine and dandy, but I didn't really need that. That's just after he spread, and this is usually what a bunch of people just know. Santa comes. Some people learn that he has a Dark Helper. I think that kind of stayed there in the Europe lands, because I didn't hear about it till long after I stopped believing in Santa Claus. But anyways, this is how Santa spread to the Americas. The Dutch brought Saint Nick to New Amsterdam, and this stayed even after England took over New York. Germans brought Saint Nick and the Dark Helper during the 1700s and 1800s, and the modern Santa of America came from a poem by Clement C. Moore, which I didn't read the poem, but I'm trusting my research that whatever. I'm just assuming it had the jolly in his nose and his suit and all that stuff. But yes, so finally, who should be Santa? So far, our main candidates are Germany and the Netherlands. Germany, because Germany helped make the Dark Helper, and in the Netherlands, this is where the Dark Helper got his semblance of Krampus. And the Dutch also lent us a bunch of words like Sinterklaas, like Santa Claus, and the Dutch helped. But do you want Germany or the Netherlands seriously bringing you presents? Let's think about this for a second. Germany is this really strict, hard, really mean guy, and the Netherlands is just a cheapskate. So who should really be Santa? Well, from what we learned in our research, Santa was this really jolly guy, and he had this dude that if you didn't do right, if you didn't learn your prayers, or if you weren't good, because that's what the Christians did. You can learn your prayers, or you can be taken down to hell by your own God. Your choice. So they decided to learn their prayers. Anyways, so it was either learn your prayers and don't be taken down to hell by your own God, or don't learn your prayers and suffer the consequences. Now, is there a duo in Italia that would fit this? Is there? And they're part of our candidates, and you know what I'm going with this. Santa and his Dark Helper. Now, the reason I think Prussia and Germany should be the true Santa and Krampus in this is because Prussia is the, how should we say, the nice guy. He's the one that's gonna stop his brother from hurting you. He's like the jolly guy. He would be pretty cool with kids, and he likes cute things. He likes kids. He would be a good patron saint of children. Germany, he's what happens when you don't be good. He whips you into shape. He's scary. He's big. And I just thought it would be neat to have two characters embody this version of Santa. The one where he was the patron saint of children, and the version that was enslaved, that's trapped, that's stuck being mean and terrible to ones that loved him. So this is my theory on who should really be the Santa Claus: Prussia and Germany. Because reasons, and it works. It was a good theory in my head. Anyways, that's all for this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll have more Christmas videos coming out. The one I wanted to get out isn't working out so well, but we'll figure it out. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more anime and otaku related content. Ciao, chicos.